Hi guys, Yuki here, back with Seduce Me 2, the Demon War, part 11 of the alternate routes. Still on Eric. We're gonna try finishing up. I went back, to one of my older save files where everything was going alright, and I guess the only, there's like one choice that should hopefully get me the last ending for it. So let's continue. Let's just sleep. We would survive. We would be okay. I felt safe in Eric's arms, and I'm sure he felt safe in mine. We'd return to the human world and be okay. Eric kissed my forehead, feeling my exhaustion, and we tucked ourselves in, wrapping each other in our arms and escaping one last time in the darkness of slumber. Tomorrow would decide everything. The day of the siege had finally dawned. We had arrived at the Demon Lord's castle, and we were as ready as we could be. Many armies bearing different banners and colors washed over the grounds before the castle, ready to rush in and lay waste to the Demon Lord and the remainder of his forces. All of us shared a common enemy, and upon his demise we would all finally know some form of peace. But even during the roll call of the major generals, the air became full of determination and pride.
Mirth! Avarice! Nausea! Fiorna! Aradum!
Each name called became a mark on history. This was the war to bring freedom or destruction to the demon world. If the rebellion didn't win this fight, then war would never end. If the rebellion won, then the world would become united and hopefully a peaceful rule. The hour before the battle was set to take place, my thoughts instantly ran back to our final meeting in Lilith Castle. Dan had pulled the leaders and us together, instructing us how exactly to proceed.
Zero, you will be joining Shadow and Sergeant in the front, taking care of the main army head-on. I expect that you will come out of it alive.
Yes, my lady.
Rabbit, Faye, you are in charge of range attacks and defense. We cannot allow any of those blasted imps getting to us from behind.
Yes, ma'am!
As Diana looked to me, I grew slightly fearful. I had to get into the Demon Lord's castle, but how exactly did Diana plan on getting me there?
You and your fiancé will take the side route straight to the castle.
Wait, huh?
We've organized our army to have our strongest on the front lines and against the tree line, giving us a side route for you to make your way straight to the castle.
If anything trickles into the side route, you'll be able to handle it. However, there is something I must ask of you.
What is it?
If you are indeed attacked, you need to defend your fiancé the entire way there. Do not let him use his energy.
Are you out of your mind?
When you get to the castle, I will be fighting one-on-one with the Demon Lord. If something should happen to me, then I need you to take over. She is not ready to fight him, and you need to be at full strength to finish him off.
She'll be okay. She's got my magic with her.
I stared, listening and reaffirming the order. I couldn't lie, I was nervous. However, I was determined enough to see this through. I looked over at my fiancé with a confident smile. I got this, don't worry. Despite the worried look in his eyes, he nodded and held my hand, trusting me in my decision to agree with Diana's command. Diana rolled her shoulders and looked at the map draped over the war table between us all. Her gaze pierced into the parchment as the aura on her body pulsated in anger.
I will fly ahead and meet the Demon Lord head-on. No matter what happens, I will not allow that monster to live.
The pure determination and anger in her voice physically sent a shiver down my spine. She was set on seeing this through to the end, and I was sure she was willing to even die if it meant taking the Demon Lord with her. The remaining incubi and wives were asked to stay behind the army and guard the main base, where Rabbit and Faye were stationed. They needed as many eyes as possible in the back of the battle, so the four couples were perfect to keep them in check. As they agreed, the meeting ended and the mental preparation had begun. The idea of the upcoming battle scared me, sending waves of fear and worry up and down my body in response to the thought.
So, my warrior princess, are you ready?
I want to say yes, but I'm scared. Eric gave me a comforting smile and leaned down and kissed my cheek, wrapping his arms around me softly.
I promise. I will protect you from anything that comes our way.
I listened to him speak before nodding, taking in a deep breath. Everything would be okay. It would be fine. I had to believe in myself and get us to the castle when the time was right. Like a beacon, our forces became the banner of hope and strength for the rebellion. At the sight of Diana, many soldiers bowed or stared in awe and inspiration. Maybe it was her presence, or maybe it was that for what she stood for, but as Diana stood on the cliff side of the mountain, the air became full of energy and power. My fiancé, Rabbit Faye, and I stood behind her as Diana stood at the ledge of the cliffside, addressing the rebellion for their final battle. Her voice echoed across the field, booming and reverberating through the air like thunder.
Milites! Et hoc liberati esturei tramcun tuis omnibus conversiris! Sto vobiscum reducitic vos ad spem! Nocte! Lavabir mur! Arcem! Hostium sanguine!
What is she saying?
She said that she will help them gain their freedom, and she will stand with them as they fight this war.
Is that all?
Well, she also said that the castle will be bathed in blood, but I don't believe she means it literally.
I nodded as I stared at the back of Diana's head. A part of me felt a little intimidated and jealous of the power she had. She really could make armies bow to her and obey her every whim. At the same time, I knew that she was doing the right thing for this world.
Ele Dio dominati sunt nostri! Nos destruet, ium mitere, profundissimum, inferni detractos!
Rabbit and Faith stepped forward and held their hands out towards the castle, focusing their energies and forcing the stone walls around it to crumble and dissolve down onto the earth. Diana summoned her saber, letting it shine brilliantly as the purple taint over her skin began to twist and turn. Before my eyes, the taint on her back took shape, lifting off of Diana's skin and morphed to a set of demonic wings. I could only stare, jaw dropped as Diana's body lifted off of the ground and began to fly over the legions, slowly gliding towards the castle.
To war! To battle!
At her final command, Diana's wings pulsated in the air, flapping gracefully as she swooped down and forward. She was charging and flying for the castle walls, saber bared and ready to spill blood. As the armies below began to bellow and march forward, Rabbit took hold of my shoulder and turned me away from the castle to face her.
Come, we must hurry.
Understanding the need for urgency, I nodded and rushed forward with the rest of the incubi towards the slope down the mountainside.
Everything is in order. Sergeant Diana's guard are at the front lines, while Shadow is with his legion to the west.
Is our route clear?
We've done what we can to keep your way clear. We'll try to make sure the battle won't break through the path.
I nodded, feeling the need to rush nip at my heels. Pushing me forward, my fiancé seemed to agree, gripping my hand and walking my face alongside me. However, as we finally arrived at the forest line, Faye and Rabbit stopped, looking back at us.
Straight through here. The sound of the war will always be on your right, so do not get lost. You'll be fine, though. Just follow the tree line.
In sync, my fiancé and I nodded in acknowledgement before turning to see the other brothers and their wives. So, this is it.
Remember your surroundings and protect each other.
Be careful, alright? Make sure you stay.
Kick his dead body a couple times for me, alright? Right in the head.
We'll be right here rooting for you and watching your back, okay?
Okay, so this is a little bit off topic, but so I never noticed this back button before. So all those times when I accidentally skipped over the text, I could have always gone back. And I didn't even realize this till today. Okay, to the story.
We'll finish this and rush in as soon as we can, alright?
Make sure you kick some serious ass. Show that old goat what he gets for messing with you.
We'll win this. We know we can.
You can do this. We'll see you soon, okay?
I smiled despite the nerves running through my body. I held onto my fiancé's hand and gave him a hard squeeze before receiving one back in kind. We'll finish this, then we'll go home. The group nodded before I slowly turned and looked into the tree line, took a breath, and rushed forward. Matching my speed, my love followed, weaving through the trees behind me to not lose sight of me. The journey was surprisingly, dare I say, peaceful? The sound of the war exploded beside us outside the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume, but I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. As I rushed forward, I felt my instincts go aflutter, causing me to stop and remember that I could fly. My incubus skidded to a halt beside me, looking at me in out-of-breath confusion.
Princess, what's wrong?
I looked up at him, staring into his eyes and contemplating my plan. It took a lot of energy out of me, but it was faster than running. Plus, I would be holding him with me, adding on to the weight. I took a moment before mentally hitting the button. I quickly grabbed my incubus's hand and pulled him close, tightly wrapping an arm around him and shooting a hand up into the ground. Fly! As my voice rang through the air, my feet suddenly were pushed up and off the ground, pulling my incubus along with me, causing him to wrap his arms around me in utter surprise and fear of falling.
Whoa!
Our bodies shot into the air above the trees and let us see the battle raging beside us. I stared in shock as the battle escalated between the two sides, slicing and ripping at each other for territory and ground. Still, the thought of the castle ran through my head, causing me to shake my head and fly us forward, and the incubus in my arms held me tighter. It was a little cute to think about him holding me like this for once as I guided him through the air. I knew that there were imps still in the forest below, however, so I glared into the tree and pointed a hand out, forming a familiar green orb in my hand and chucking it into the woods. I repeated the action over and over as we continued forward. I could faintly hear the sound of the imps below becoming caught in my thorns, some even crying out from actually being impacted by one of the orbs and being cocooned by a thorny trap. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my carnage, ignored the sounds below us and held me close to him, knowing that if he let go, he would fall. I wasn't focused on him at that moment. All I cared about was getting us to the castle. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there were a slew of dead bodies behind me, all entangled in a forest full of thorn bushes. I landed at the tree line, panting and feeling waves of exhaustion running through my body. I panted for air, focusing slowly to calming down, as my energy quickly depleted from continuing usage to keep me in the air. That was all I could do before my energy was expended and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. I began to fall forward, exhausted. My fiancé, however, quickly rushed forward and caught me in his arms.
Whoa! Princess, are you okay?
Huh? I looked up to see Eric staring down at me with a deeply concerned gaze. We were safe for the moment, so I merely smiled up at him and with a nod. I'm fine. I promise to protect you like you protect me. Eric let out a small laugh, kissing my forehead and hugging me to him.
You spoil me so much, my love.
I hugged him back, feeling relief that we finally arrived at the castle and were about to rush inside. As we slowly pulled away, Eric lifted me up and helped me to my feet.
Will you be all right?
I nodded, shaking off the exhaustion from my mind. I was ready to end this. I looked up at the castle gates and felt a rush of determination run through me. Let's go finish this. With that, Eric and I rushed forward into the castle. The final battle had begun. Eric and I rushed into the castle and into the main hall where we could hear Diana and the Demon Lord clashing swords.
I will tear you to shreds!
As we finally entered the space where the battle was happening, we stopped at the doorway, spotting Diana slamming her saber over and over onto the Demon Lord's sword, which was held over his head like a shield. From the look of it, the Demon Lord was severely wounded and was trying to hold out against Diana's barrage of blows. Diana wasn't looking too well herself, but she seemed to have the upper hand. What was scary was that Diana's face was completely smeared with blood, intensifying the frightening look of rage and anger in her eyes. Every swing was reckless, powerfully thrown to eventually hack into the Demon Lord. To her displeasure, the Demon Lord was able to block each time. Eric and I slowly stepped in, watching as Diana continued to beat steel to steel in an angry rage, trying to find an opening and becoming more enraged with each block the Demon Lord pulled. Slowly his body began to glow, pulsing with red energy.
Enough!
With a blast of red lightning, Diana was sent flying back, slamming against the pillar and falling to the ground with a thud.
Ah!
Diana! The Demon Lord seemed to ignore my shout as he stood and began to walk over towards Diana's fallen body. Diana tried to press up onto her hand, stumbling and buckling a bit before she stared up at the Demon Lord while he approached.
I should have waited until you came back, so I could have killed all of you in one fell swoop!
Diana's glare intensified as a large purple and black flame engulfed her body from the rage that ignited within her.
You bastard!
Pouncing off the ground, Diana formed the new saber in her hand and flew at the Demon Lord, swinging it to slice his throat open. However, the Demon Lord parried, locking steel once more with her and leaning in with a hard glare of his own.
How does it feel to be the only one left alive in your family? Not even your unborn sister survived!
Diana snarled as she slammed her feet into the Demon Lord's chest, forcing him back and causing her to catch herself on her wings, remaining in the air. The voice that erupted from Diana's mouth sent shivers down my spine.
You don't even deserve the mercy of death!
Eric instinctively placed an arm in front of me, staying put and watching intently. Both of us were sure that Diana possibly had this, but we didn't want to get in the way of her rage if she was full out going berserk. The Demon Lord let out a laugh before pointing his hand at Diana, summoning a large bolt of red lightning to shoot out and slam into Diana. Luckily, Diana had placed her sword between them and blocked the lightning from hitting her skin. Still, she was slammed back into the pillar she hit before and held there against the stream of heavy red lightning.
You're losing your power, succubus! Just like your weak parents!
With a tearful scream, Diana pushed back, shaking and gritting her teeth. The wounds on her body began to bleed profusely, but she eventually set up a wave of purple flame-like energy into her sword and letting it climb up to the light bolt into the Demon Lord's hand. The Demon Lord quickly pulled his hand away, revealing a sizzling, burning aura around his palm and fingers. Diana weakened, fell to her knees exhausted but not out yet. Her eyes still bore into the enemy, not ready to give up. I felt myself glare hard at the Demon Lord. He was a monster that needed to be stopped. Eric, feeling my anger, stepped forward and began to summon his ethereal tendrils behind his back and around his form.
Guess it's time to step in.
I watched as Eric rushed forward and planted his feet beside Diana, reeling his hands back and punching them forward. As he did, a crown of tendrils shot up from the ground around his body and flew at the Demon Lord with a spray of arrows. The Demon Lord glared and sliced each attack out of the way, panting from the exhaustion but not ready to surrender. As he sliced through the last one, he sneered at the second sign, gritting his teeth.
You!
Eric smirked, licking his lips slightly.
Did you miss me, father?
As he finished his sentence, Eric formed another round of spikes behind him and shot them towards his father, glaring as he blocked and knocked away each one again with his sword. The Demon Lord let out a dark chuckle.
Like I would miss little insect traitors like you!
The Demon Lord let out a howl before slamming his giant sword into the floor, causing the ground to quake and a large crack to cut through the marble and charge at Eric's position. Eric jumped into the air and landed beside the broken earth, sending out another volley of spikes. Luckily, one rammed into the Demon Lord's shoulder, causing him to shout in pain.
Losing your touch, aren't you?
The Demon Lord snarled before ripping the spike out of his body and letting the wound bleed openly before rushing at his son with his sword held high. However, Diana swooped in and slammed her saber into the path of his sword, forming a deadlock.
I'm not finished with you!
Diana and the Demon Lord pushed against each other, eventually jumping away from each other in aggravation. As Diana landed beside Eric, he stepped in and pointed his hands to the ground, where his tendrils burrowed through the marble and jutted out like a spike trap. The Demon Lord was quick to react, rushing back before the spikes impaled him from below and glared. This match had become an unfair fight for him, but in our case, we needed to finish him off at last.
Just as cocky as your mother! No wonder she was my least favorite!
Eric suddenly grew a dark face, the tendrils at his body glowing in a red misty aura. Something snapped in Eric's emotions, and the Demon Lord triggered it.
Don't worry. I'll send you to a place where you'll never have to see her again.
Eric and the Demon Lord would then simultaneously rush forward at each other, with the Demon Lord raising his sword high and Eric moving his tendrils to wrap around his blade. Eric and the Demon Lord went into a deadlock, with the Demon Lord trying to cut through the fold his tendrils had on his sword. Eric, however, formed more free tendrils and shot them up at the Demon Lord from below, causing his father to release the sword and jump back, now unarmed. Eric smirked at his tendrils, snapped the sword in half with insane ease, and tossed the two halves to the side to be forgotten. I watched in anxiousness, hoping the battle would end soon. It was 2 against 1. The Demon Lord wasn't going to win. I, however, kept my distance to make sure he wouldn't attack me instead. I had no energy to fight. Taking in what Eric had done to his weapon, the Demon Lord snarled.
I can beat you even without my sword! Remember who raised you, boy!
Eric let out a large bark of laugh at his tendrils, sharpened light into spikes once again.
I'm afraid you're mistaken. My mother raised me. You were too busy doting on your favorite son to care about me or the others.
The Demon Lord growled, his fist becoming engulfed in red bolts of lightning.
I created you! You owe your very existence to me!
I owe you nothing!
The Demon Lord only laughed before suddenly gasping from pain. I had barely seen what had happened, but as I stared at the Demon Lord, I gasped at the sight. Protruding from the Demon Lord's chest were a spray of red spikes, dripping with his blood. I could barely keep staring as he turned and looked to us in the shock. I looked over to Eric to see him pointing at the wall behind the Demon Lord, where a collection of spikes threaded through the black void into the Demon Lord's back, effectively skewering him.
You never paid attention. You were blinded by pride, and that will be your downfall.
No! He's mine!
Eric quickly pulled back his tendrils from his father's body, causing the Demon Lord to fall forward from the pain and momentum. Diana, however, swooped at the Demon Lord and rammed her saber into his chest, a garbled gasp escaping his throat. Without hesitating, Diana pulled her sword out and stabbed him once again, driving her blade all the way through him and out the hilt and snarling into his face.
Those were for my parents.
A third stab directly through the heart.
For my sister!
Finally, Diana pulled her sword out and rammed the pommel into the side of his head, pushing him down to the ground in a lifeless thud. He was dead by now, eyes glazed over in death's cold, breathless embrace. However, Diana didn't care. Diana quickly straddled his waist, bringing up her saber and using her magic to shorten it to a dagger in her hands above her head.
And for every life you took from this world!
Mad, and Diana began to violently slam and pepper stabs into the Demon Lord's chest. Eric rushed over and wrapped his arms around me, covering me from the sight, but he was unable to block the sound of Diana's soft-filled screams with each stab. I became a bit frightened at Diana and how she was releasing her anger, however. It was entirely justified. He had taken everything from her and had caused worldwide chaos. It was only natural to demand revenge, even after death. This was her last chance. Stand with him, and she had dominated his very corpse with her blade, and caring of the lust spirit no longer within it. It went on for far too long, to the point where Eric had to let me go and walk forward, pulling Diana off of him. She began to flail, dropping her knife and letting it fade out as it hit the ground into nothing.
No! Let go!
Diana!
Eric pulled Diana to her feet and gripped her shoulder, shaking her and glaring into her eyes.
Enough!
Diana's eyes were bloodshot, desperate to keep striking the dead body, but filled with emotion and broken inhibition. As she finally took in Eric's words, she shut her eyes and dropped to her knees, releasing a wave of sobs and cries. I walked over to Eric's side, pitying Diana. She must have seen so much death. This was her solace and chance to let go. To know her family was gone because of him wrenched past pain into my heart, but I knew that it was finally over. They were avenged, so were the people who died under his hand. The Demon Lord was dead at last. I felt a weight lift off of my heart and spirit, proving to me that the curse was broken and that the chain that bound me to the abyssal plains was gone. I could go home. I hugged Eric's arm to me, finally letting out the sigh I was holding in relief of the situation. Eric smiled and kissed my hand.
It's over now.
Yeah, we can go home now. A wave of joy rushed through my body, happy to know that I was free to go home. I began to become overjoyed with the idea of returning, walking across the aisle and marrying Eric before returning to my normal life. Life in the Demon World was an adventure, but it was time to finish this and leave. I smiled to Eric before kneeling down and placing a hand on Diana's shoulder as she cried, causing her to look up at me. I could only smile at her, to try to release some of the heartache and burden she was releasing. It's over, Diana. We won. A small breath of silence ran through the air before Diana wiped the tears from her eyes and nodded, still shaky from the experience.
It's over.
I nodded and gently helped Diana stand before taking Eric's hand and walking toward the entrance of the hall. Diana, however, turned back to look at the Demon Lord's body, stopping us in our tracks.
Was this all worth it? I lost my family because of him. There was so much bloodshed.
Diana tightened a fist at her side, gritting her teeth and shutting her eyes.
I didn't get to say goodbye to my family. My sister.
I felt another wave of empathy run through my body at her words. She wasn't really alone, though. She had Sero. He was truly everything she had left in the world, and he was more than willing to walk through it with her. It was all right, so I reached out to take her shoulder. Diana looked over, seeing the comfort in my eyes despite her broken gaze. Before I could speak, however, a familiar purple light glowed from the Demon Lord's body, catching our eyes and causing us all to look over in shock. What was happening? What the? Before our eyes, a faint purple orb slowly appeared and bobbed up and down in the air, looking to us. The orb had haunted me and was expelled from me, floated over the dead body of the Demon Lord as if it had been there the entire time. You! The orb moved in a circle around the Demon Lord's body, letting the faint trail behind it temporarily draw a circle in the air. As it returned to its spot, it released a pulse of light. The light slowly drifted towards Diana, impacting her chest and making her glow a bit before the light faded away. Confused, Diana stared up at the spirit, trying to figure out what it had done to her. Was it an attack? Slowly, Diana became wide at the unfamiliarity. With a shaky hand, Diana reached out towards the orb, lost emotion in her eyes as she kept her sights on the spirit.
Oh! Arabelle!
I stared at Diana in shock. It had a name? How did Diana even know the spirit at all? It was like she was grasping at straws. How could Diana have known who it was? Orb floated forward, stopping in front of the Demon Lord's corpse as Diana took a step forward.
Hi, Azair.
I was wrong. Diana hit the nail on the head with its name, and it seemed to be acquainted with it. Diana took a couple more steps forward before dropping to her knees in the middle of the hall. I watched as her tears began to stream down her face and her body began to quake. The orb slowly floated over to Diana and covered just within arm's reach of her. Diana's hands shakily lifted up past her chest and over her mouth.
Arabelle!
It's okay. It's okay, big sister.
Big sister? Diana was her... Diana suddenly let out a tearful gasp before reaching forward and taking the orb into her arms, somehow pulling the orb into a tight embrace. The orb seemed to be shimmer in the hug it was in, but it didn't seem to react in any other way. Diana, however, became a weeping mess, crying and shaking while holding Arabelle close.
Arabelle! Arabelle!
I couldn't believe it. The spirit was Arabelle, Diana's sister? What kind of coincidence was that? How did Diana not know herself? How did Arabelle not tell me? It was obviously new Diana just from how they were embracing. Still, the sight of Diana in mournful tears gripped to my heart. Diana lost her sister and suddenly was able to speak to her once more. Even after Arabelle's death, it was as if fate wanted to apologize for taking her family away. I almost became a crying mess myself. It was a very tearful reunion after a dramatic battle. I didn't know how to feel in the situation we were in. Diana didn't seem to care. She continued to cry and hold Arabelle. Eric wrapped around her arm around me, comforting me as I wet my tears and tried to avoid weeping. Diana, however, didn't seem to care about the tears running down her face.
This is the first time I've heard you cry, sister.
I'm sorry. I tried to save you, but
It's okay. The Demon Lord did this to me.
It made sense. Arabelle was an unborn baby, so it wouldn't have known its name. The Demon Lord was the one who killed her, so the puzzle pieces were connecting perfectly. Arabelle then phased out of Diana's hands, making the demoness gasp as she looked up at the orb. Arabelle, however, floated in place in front of Diana as she continued to speak.
The Demon Lord made me find the human.
What? Arabelle was working for the Demon Lord? She helped the imps bring me to the demon world?
Arabelle, you were in the human all along? Why not just tell me? Why?
He made me. But now I have nowhere to go.
Oh, Arabelle.
Something in the air didn't seem right. Something about Arabelle became off and I couldn't place my finger on it. The more I stared, the more concerned I became, and the heavier the nervousness in my gut grew.
Desire, I love you so much, but...
The air seemed to freeze and the room became still as Orville floated back towards the body of the Demon Lord. As Orville stopped, she began to glow a dark red and purple color.
I can't forgive you.
All at once, the orb flashed and vanished into thin air, only a misty gasp present in the aftermath.
Orville!
We looked around, trying to pin down where she had gone. As the Demon Lord's hand suddenly lifted up and slammed into the ground, we shot our heads back at her corpse, seeing it begin to animate. The Demon Lord slammed his other hand into the ground and began to push himself up, curling his shoulders over and using whatever strength he had in getting onto his knees and eventually his feet. What? The Demon Lord's body stood and steadied himself on the ground on its 2 feet, heavy and void of life. What was happening? How could this be? As the Demon Lord's head lifted to look up at Diana, I gasped. His eyes were glossed over in the dark purple, almost black color. Blood continued to pour from the wounds in his body, but the body continued to move as if it was a small breath of life. His mouth dropped and began to mold itself into forming words, dead and echoey with Orville seeping through.
You let him kill me. You let him kill mother and father.
Orville!
You let the human live and let us die. I can never forgive you.
The voice of the Demon Lord and Orville seemed to fuse into dissonant harmony as the body slowly began to march towards unmoving Diana. My mind screamed for her to move and run, but Diana didn't seem to be immobile at the oncoming danger. Diana, move! She remained in place, shocked and frozen at what her sister had said and done. I could barely make out her hair and body shuddering in natural fear, but she wouldn't move at all. Call out again. Diana! I stood there, lost in what was happening. When she reached her, Orville grabbed hold of Diana's throat and lifted her, making Diana choke and flare her legs in the air. Sorry, this is the only way.
Say sorry with your life.
Eric and I became witness to Orville crushing Diana's throat. I could barely hear her cries as the snapping of her neck echoed through the hall. Diana. As Orville let her body drop to the floor, Diana's corpse made a painful thud echo through the room behind my screen. Orville then turned her head to look at me and Eric. Orville loomed towards us, filling me with dread. The stench of the Demon Lord's corpse became unbearable despite not being dead alone. I still had no energy to fight, the realization making me step back from the undead Demon Lord.
You hurt me.
Hurt me.
Now I'll hurt you.
Orville picked up the Demon Lord's broken blade parts and slammed them together, fusing them back into one sword with her energy. How was that possible? She was a spirit. Orville then started to charge at us, raising the sword barely over Eric's and my head. I prepared to defend, but was blocked by the back of Eric's head and a wave of ethereal tendrils. All at once, the tendrils grabbed hold of the sword and forced it away. Around Eric's body was a deep aura of red and purple mist, swirling in the air and wrapping around his summoned tendrils. As he stepped forward, Orville surprisingly stepped back.
I won't let you hurt the one I love.
Apologies. My brother's currently moving out, so yeah, there's gonna be that going on a little bit. Trying to wrap her arms around him, but was pushed away by Eric's tendrils. Orville and Eric charged at one another, Orville gripping the Eric's outstretched tendrils and began to push at each other. The wounds on the Demon Lord's body began to open and bleed further, causing it to quake and push against Eric's strength.
You won't last long in that body. Give up.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
With her screams, Orville knocked away the tendrils before she managed to get close to Eric, but not without impaling herself on traps Eric placed around him, which caused spikes to shoot up into the rotten body of the Demon Lord. Disgusted at the sight and smell, Eric used his tendrils to shove Orville off of him and toward the opposite end of the room, where Orville slid and rolled against the marble, painting it red and black with blood. Quickly, Orville jumped back and began to howl and scream, her cries filling the room and making it quake violently. Yeah. I held my head trying to block out the sound her cries began to fill my head with dissonant pain. Eric, in defiance, sprayed a volley of spikes at her, all landing on target. The spikes remained in the corpse, but Orville continued to move, desperate to fight back with everything she had. What was wrong with her? How was she able to keep going? Were spirits really that powerful? As my back hit the corner of the room, I could hear Eric release a grunt of pain, causing me to look over my shoulder to see what had happened. Eric, having knocked away a slash from Orville's sword, unfortunately couldn't block a fist from sending Eric flying at the wall. Eric's body slammed into the stone and fell into the ground, gasping for air and curled over himself from the pain. Eric! I instantly rushed over and knelt to Eric's side, wrapping an arm over him as he slowly began to rise back up.
I'm fine, Princess.
I shook my head and looked to Orville, seeing her slowly make her way towards us. I was certain that the body she was using was drained of any blood, and yet she managed to keep it moving with her own energy. It was morbidly disgusting to see, but I was forced to bear witness as it came closer to where we were. What are we going to do? Eric and I looked at each other, desperate to find an answer in each other's eyes. However, one finally appeared in my mind. According to Diana, when I had Orville within me, I was overflowing with energy. If I was still standing, then I still had some left. There wasn't enough for me to fight, but that was enough to give Eric to possibly help him. I suddenly grabbed Eric's face and kissed him, willing my energy into his body. Eric, despite naturally accepting it, stared wide at me in surprise. I didn't want to pass out, so I pulled away when I began to feel lightheaded. I hoped and prayed that it was enough energy to end this fight, so I smiled at Eric, nodding to him. Finish this so we can go home. I quickly collapsed onto my hands, panting for air. The room began to spin, but I had to shake it off. I had to see this through. Eric gazed at me before nodding and turning to Orville, who was halfway across the room now. Slowly, Eric rose to his feet and summoned his mob of tendrils, and each dancing and waving like angry snakes in the air.
You've been in my way for long enough, spirit.
Walking forward, Eric lashed out his tendrils at Orville, whipping and snapping at the body she was possessing and forcing it back despite her attempts to block and force them away. Ever so often, a spike would fly from Eric's ring of tendrils, piercing into Orville like a skewer. As Eric passed the Demon Lord's sword, he reached and picked it up, surprisingly with ease. I could barely stand, gripping onto the wall as I watched Eric lift the sword to his side.
You possessed my wife, brought her to this world, and dared to attack her? All because of what my father did to you. Pitiful.
Orville let out a threatening and frightening shout, lurching forward to try and tackle Eric, but was pushed away by the Demon Lord's blade and Eric's tendrils, causing her to knock into and collapse one of the nearby pillars. Orville slowly rose, pushing the debris off of her before glaring hard at Eric. Eric glared back in kind before raising his father's blade up to his side and preparing to try forward with it to plunge into her.
I will send you to purgatory and free you from your suffering.
With one last cry, Eric ran and thrust the Demon Lord's sword forward into Orville, causing her to cry out. The room began to vibrate and quake, causing me to cover my head. However, Eric released the hilt of the sword and rushed back to me. A bright light filled the room, blinding me, Eric and I. Eric gripped onto me, trying to cover my body with his, but the white color of the flash invaded my vision. Silence slowly consumed the air as my world became blank like a canvas. Oh, this is kind of really sad. I feel really bad. I'm sorry, Diana. I looked up at last to see two orbs, both colored in different purple hues, dancing around each other. As I stared, they stopped and bobbed in the air.
Thank you. You freed me at last.
Orbo? Diana? As I stared, the darker orb floated forward slightly, acknowledging the name I had called it. I couldn't believe it. Before I could speak again, however, Diana's voice filled the air.
It's all right. I did my part to save this world. And now I can be with my family.
I'm sorry. My heart felt like breaking. The orb that I assumed to be Orabelle spun around Diana's orb and giggled.
Come on! Let's go see Mother and Father!
One moment, darling dear.
The orb slowly formed into a ghostly form of Diana, who, despite holding a smile, was shedding tears.
Dear, I'm sorry.
Diana held up her hand and gently shushed me before slowly looking back up at me, eyes full of sadness and heartbreak.
I do not deserve your kindness. But please do one thing for me before you leave this world.
What?
Please, tell Sarah that I'm sorry.
My heart continued to rip in two. Sarah had been with Diana for a long time, and now he was all alone. Diana's expression weakened to a softer sadness, but the smile on her face remained.
Tell him that I loved him, and will love him forever. I will wait at the gates of purgatory for him to return to me.
I was unsure of what I could say. I was to be the one to completely wipe out Sarah's entire world. How in the world was I going to live with myself with that burden even after it happened? Despite this, I nodded. I will. Diana smiled brighter at me, more tears falling down her cheeks before Arabelle's orb danced once again around her.
Come on! Arabelle! Is there... Mother!
Arabelle finally floated off and faded away, a soft echo goodbye fading with her. Diana, however, remained still looking to me.
Human, thank you for saving this world. May your journey back to your own world be safe, and may you be happy for the rest of your lives.
Diana, Azure, goodbye. Diana walked and turned around, finally fading into the light. As the world returned to me to the great hall, I found myself still wrapped in Eric's arms. I looked up to see him staring down at me in worry, like I'd passed out. Eric?
Love, are you alright?
Despite the rogue tears that ran down my face, I nodded. It was all right now. The battle was over and I was free to return home. Great sacrifices were made, but it was all over now. I was going home.
Well, you did it! Congratulations! You've made it to the end of your story. I have to say, I am very surprised at how it turned out.
I don't think I got the bad end. I'm gonna try next time. But it is a sort of bad end, but good end.
Nevertheless, I'm glad things worked out in the end, whether it was for the better or otherwise. I mean, who would have thought that Diana's own sister was the one that brought you to the demon world? It's a small universe, isn't it? However, your love came through in the end. With your strength, Eric was finally able to defeat Arabelle and send her to the afterlife, where she belonged. Anyways, you've been through a lot, so why don't we skip to... Huh? You want to know what happened after the war? Well, I mean, I guess I could tell you. After the war was finished, the entire rebellion celebrated. Word spread far and wide about the rebellion's success, and soon every kingdom in the abyssal plains had become united with the new authority. You would think demons would be more hostile towards each other, being demons and all, but the threat of the demon lord was what brought the entire world together. When Diana's body was found, the entire rebellion wept. Even the rebel leaders, and especially Sero. Despite the war being over and celebrations being the highlight of the night following it, the death of their queen became the dreadful morning news.
Achievement unlocked. Yeah, it's something about a cremation. Maybe I'm looking at it really quick. A royal cremation. I'm sorry.
She was given a public cremation, watched by the entire rebellion army, and when her body became ashes, Sero took the remains to a tree sacred to her family, burying her ashes at the roots. What did Sero do then? Well, you see...
Oh no, he committed suicide, didn't he?
Since Sero is... well... since he's half angel, his angel blood prevents him from letting him take his own life.
Oh.
As it's inscribed on their blood by heaven, that they will live until time or their enemies end them.
Oh.
None of the rebel leaders would agree to take his life, and every demon in the abyssal plains came to respect him too much to challenge him. So he simply sits at the foot of Diana's family tree, desperate to wither away.
Oh.
I think he's still there now. Poor Sero. Anyway, The other rebel leaders, desperate to make sure that her death wouldn't be to the surprise of many.
Let me go back.
They did a anyway. The other rebel leaders, desperate to make sure that her death wouldn't be in vain, brought themselves together and swore to bring the world to the peace they believed she imagined it to have. To the surprise of many, they did a pretty decent job. They slowly started to work at breaking the caste system and organized trade on every inch of the world. All of it in the memory of the fallen succubus. And I believe that is everything that happened after, well, except for your story anyway.
I don't want to hear my story.
Eric and you returned home, and since everything was taken care of before he found you, you got ready for the actual wedding. Huh? How do I know? Well, I have my ways. Maybe you should check it out.
Yeah, I'm just gonna...
Anything for you, my sweet princess.
It's bittersweet.
I would happily do anything for you. Anything. Just name it. Forever and always. As close as I can hold you to me. Everything in my life belongs to you. My heart, my body, my soul, everything. I swear to give you everything I am and love you until the end of time. Nothing will tear me away from you. I love you, princess. I love you so much.
I'll be back. Okay, guys, I'm back. I think I figured it out. And since everybody's been wondering what happens if I choose I believe in you all, this is what I'm gonna do. They were right. She was very powerful, and if she truly was corrupted, then she needed to be cut off from before she caused any damage. Thoughts of revenge bubbled in my mind, reminding me of how horrible she had been in the human world when she had tried to take the boys away from me. She had the gall to take my energy and test me at school as some sort of sadistic teacher. She had this coming to her. For the four in the room stared at me, taking my reply.
I'm fairly shocked.
I'm a terrible person.
Well, now what do we do with her?
I waited as the group looked to each other before Faye magically formed a small vial. Okay.
Should we give it to her? She's close enough to her.
Give what? Oh, I'm sorry. Faye ignored me and passed the vial to Shadow, who began to imbue it with his own dark magic. Slowly the glass began to fill with the dark, inky liquid, stopping a quarter of the way up. Was it poison? Shadow passed the vial to Rabbit, who did the same, creating purple liquid, and then the contact separated a bit, causing a strange, beautiful gradient effect. As Sergeant took hold of it, it began to fill with green liquid, becoming mixed with poison already within the vial. Finally, Faye took the vial back and shoved a cork on the top before shaking the mixture violently. As they did, a strange gray energy began to glow around it, pulsing like a heartbeat and slowly until it eventually faded away.
There.
From the tone of their voice, the decision and truly to go through with this was solidified. They all were serious in wanting Diana to die. I felt a little pity for what was to come. Faye turned and floated to me, holding it out the vial.
We were gonna give this to her during the final celebration after the siege, but we're pretty sure that guard will be watching her like a hawk.
Then why give it to me?
Because she trusts you. I have a theory that she'll pull you aside, away from everyone else, to have a little chat before you're sent back to the human world.
Oh god, well, I mean, I took it, but she's gonna die before then, so does it matter? How can you be so sure?
Because when we tried to send you home, she tried to slip in an extra item onto the spell reagent list. And according to my recent studies, it is actually very important to demons like her. I suspect that she was going to give it to you as a gift.
Since the gate spell didn't work, she probably took the time to find it herself. She'll take you aside and give it to you before you leave, which will give you the chance to be alone with her.
I was surprised Dinah was going to give me something important. I was curious as to what it was, but my thoughts trailed off as I stared at Faye's hands, which were still holding the vial of poison.
I guess it was a good thing you listened in then. Makes our job a bit easier.
I slowly reached out and took the vial, feeling a very subtle heartbeat emit from it. It took every ounce of will I had to not drop it in surprise. Was this thing alive? I brought it close and examined it, practically feeling its power. If Dinah was as powerful as they expected, then how powerful was this poison? I was paying such close attention to the vial in my hand that I didn't see Faye swooping back behind me and grabbing my head. Oh, well, I'm gonna get my memory wiped.
Sorry.
All at once my eye began to become fuzzy and light. What was happening to me?
Is that really necessary?
It will lower the risk of her telling anyone about our plans until the chance arises. When it does, she'll remember everything and know what to do.
I would forget about this? How did this make any sense? I didn't get a chance to fight back until my vision blacked out. I shut my eyes and felt the world spin around me before I relaxed as silence overtook my senses. My body floated for a bit in an empty void before sloppily landing on the surface, causing me to open my eyes and look around. Huh? What happened? I was in the hallway on the floor. How did I get there? I was on my way to my room. Weird. I stood up and brushed myself off and looked around, hoping that no one saw me snoozing on the floor. When I noted that the coast was clear, I quickly continued on my way to my room. I must have been more tired than I thought. And then I'm just gonna have to skip through this. Woo! We gotta let Diana die. Oops. Skip. Okay. Okay, so here's where it all goes down. Here comes where... Alright. I preferred to defend myself. I became ready for the attack. But my vision became blocked by the back of Eric's head. No! Eric! Sticking out of Eric's back was the Demon Lord's blade. It was running through his chest towards me, barely inches away from my own chest. Eric, impaled, twitched as he stared down at the sword's blade. My heart began to cry and scream. This couldn't have been happening, no! Orbel quickly pulled the blade back out and sheathed it back into Eric's body as if she wanted to be sure that she had killed him. I barely heard his last breath of life. No! I became so absorbed in the sound of my scream that I couldn't register Orbel pull out the blade and step around Eric, running it through my neck. You hurt me, now I hurt you. H. And that concludes Eric's bad end. Yeah. Oh man, this is probably one of the more gruesome ones. I guess. Okay. We're moving on to Sam next. But here's a plus side. We have one, I guess, more happy route, or not route, but like portion with Sam. So I guess there's that to look forward to. Yeah. Anyways, so I guess this is kind of like me doing a teeny tiny bit of an update. Still haven't gotten around to doing the Q&A, but now that my brother has fully moved out almost, there are gonna be some arrangements where I get a better room. So then I can have an easier setup. Downside, downgrade internet, but hey, at least nicer setup. Yeah. I don't know. I guess we're almost done. After Sam, it's Matthew and then Diana. And then we'll see what happens after that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!